Hi, this is Ajit, and today we are talking about how you can be an exponential coach. You see, most coaches focus on creating their coaching business. They think about the business model, they think about how to get more sales, they think about how to re-enroll their clients, but we all know as coaches that the key element to a really successful coaching business is to be able to take our clients from the place they're at to the place they want to be able to coach them through their journey, to be able to coach them through their challenges, to be able to coach them to become exponential and extraordinarily successful. And for that, you need to know how you can actually take them from where they are to an exponential level. So today we're going to talk about not only what does it even mean to be an exponential coach, but we are going to go into what are some of the principles that will make you an exponential coach. Here's my first question for you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much impact do you have with your clients? How much impact do you feel you create on your clients? Go ahead and rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. My second question for you is, do you create enough impact with your clients that they feel that you've not only impacted them marginally, but 10 times more? Do you have a 10x impact with your clients? How do you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? If you were to self-evaluate yourself just as a coach, how do you show up? What do you show up as? How would you rate that on a scale of 1 to 10? Usually when I would ask these questions to coaches, they would rate themselves between 5 to 7. And that usually happens, yes, because we are a little bit critical of ourselves, but we also know that is the truth. That we have to really work consistently and constantly to be able to create those dramatic results with our clients, to be able to create those 10x results with our clients, to be able to create that impact with our clients. We must make progress as a coach. We must make progress in our coaching practice and our coaching ability. Now today, we have someone really special for you. Somebody who has not only created 10x results for his clients, but he has done this consistently over several years now. One of the stories that come to my mind that he shared with me is about this gentleman who was in the British Special Forces. He was a British Special Forces officer, and he had quit that career and he had joined a new career where he was responsible for sales. Now think about it. He was a British Special Forces officer. He is fearless from what you would think. He's fearless because he's somebody who's been in the forefront. He's been in the line of duty. He's been facing death so many times. But he was scared of going on a sales conversation. But he was fearful of being able to go and really talk to somebody about a product that he was positioning in his new career. This particular gentleman, this particular coach that I'm going to bring on right now, helped this particular Special Forces officer go from a place of fear of sales to a place where his career can really exponentially grow. He's also the coach that has helped his clients to create $100 million projects to run Next Prize. He's also the same coach who has taken burned down entrepreneurs and find their fire again. I'm so excited to bring on the coach that we're about to bring on. This coach is going to show us how you too can be an exponential coach and what are some of the principles that you need to know to become an exponential coach. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rich Litvin.
Hey,
Hi, Rich.
Hey.
How are you doing?
Good. So much energy. Thank you for that introduction. It's powerful hearing myself reflected back.
I'm so excited to have you on this class because I know the coaches can really use the wealth of experience that you have had as a coach, as somebody who's created impact with leaders, entrepreneurs, and extraordinary individuals. Now, I've told a little bit about you, but I'm sure there's so much more to the story, and I know there's so much more to the story. Would you mind telling a little bit about, so our listeners can really know who is Rich Litvin?
I will, because it's easy to start with the client stories. I've coached Olympic athletes, presidential candidates, serial entrepreneurs. I've got a client right now who's raising $100 million for an X Prize. I have a client right now who's a 9 times gold medal winning martial artist. I've got a client who's an ex-Navy SEAL bomb disposal expert. And I love talking about my clients. I've been a high performer all my life, and it didn't always come from a healthy place. So I can share some of my successes, but I think it's important to hear a little part of my journey. So as a kid, I always felt the need to prove myself to my dad. And I spent a lifetime thinking that whatever I achieved wasn't good enough. That whatever I accomplished, I give myself, even to this day, a little bit, 25 seconds to acknowledge myself for what I've done before I'm looking at how I could improve it, how I can make it bigger or better, or what I could be doing next. It turns out there's a gift in that. It makes me a visionary. It makes me a future-based thinker, which as an entrepreneur is a gift. But there's a cost too, there's a pain. My dad died 3 years ago, and literally within days of him passing away, people in my community, friends, family, were saying how proud he was of me. And it dawned on me, despite all the deep work I've done for years, that I never really got that. I never got deep down inside how proud my dad was. So I was always driven for success, driven to perform at the highest levels, which has had great results for me. But there was this cost and a painful place that it came from. So that's an important part of my story. Here's the second part of my story. I felt powerless as a little kid. There was a moment I remember where I was new to secondary school, high school. I auditioned for the school play. The head teacher casts me in a role, a female role. I'm in an all-boys school from 11 till 16, and he cast me in the role of Titania, Queen of the Fairies. Nothing worse for a little boy in a boys' school getting a girl's role, and it's the Queen of the freaking Fairies. And I go back home and I cry to my mum and dad, and I cry myself to sleep for days on end. And it strikes me to this day, I didn't know I could say no. I had this feeling of being powerless for so much of my life. Well, the flip side of that, the gift of that, is that I was driven to make a difference. This little kid who felt powerless, and still does at times, was driven to make a difference. And I'm fortunate in my career, both as a teacher, as a vice principal running schools, and as a coach for over a decade, that I've been able to make a real difference. But again, it came from a painful place. And here's the last piece of my story. I was really lonely as a kid. And at a talk to entrepreneurs recently, I heard someone ask the audience, when did you first know you were different? And all the entrepreneurs put up their hands. And if you're a successful coach, you know you have to be an entrepreneur first. And every entrepreneur in the room said, I knew at a young age, I was 4, I was 7, I was 9, I knew I was different. I always knew I was different. I just didn't know it was okay to be different. So I felt really lonely for a lot of my life. All these years later, it turns out the gift in that is I've become extraordinarily good at creating community. And I do it my way, connecting with people, building relationships one at a time. And I've created amazing communities. And I wanted to put those 3 elements of my story into the picture. Because whilst we'll talk about what I've created into the future, the pain, the struggles are part of the journey of being a successful entrepreneur. And I think that's important to put into the mix too.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is very important. And most coaches, like you said, may identify that they are different, but might not be able to accept it. And that does happen with leaders as well, like you already rightly mentioned. While you were with entrepreneurs, they kind of knew it, but sometimes they're not willing to accept it. And I think that's a key distinction there, to be able to accept that you are different and you're going to create whatever you're going to create in the way you want to create it. I want to take a step back, because I know a lot of coaches actually step forward from the story of how you grew up to the story of how you became a coach. Because a lot of coaches right now may be at a stage where you were at a stage maybe 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. I don't know. What I would love to know is, when did you start as a coach? When did you discover that you had that power to be able to impact somebody's life in a different way, not as a teacher, but as a coach? And if you could share that journey a little bit, because a lot of listeners today would be at that stage and might be feeling, I can, yes, listen to Rich talking about creating exponential clients and being an exponential coach, but I can't do it.
Cool. There's something really key in there. So, because I can start and tell you the story from the moment I became a coach, and I will, but I want to go back.
Sure.
So 25 years ago, I went to Botswana in Southern Africa and taught science to kids for 2 years in a little village where the kids had no TV, the houses were literally made of mud, and I had to get really clear on how I communicated. I had to slow down the way that I speak so that children could understand me in their third language. I was teaching science in their third language. I had to realize that whilst I'd grown up in London, we have double-decker buses, it was part of my life. These kids had never even seen a house that had 2 stories. I had to be really aware of what I was saying and how I was communicating. And I speak to this because we forget. We become a new coach and think, I'm new, I'm a beginner, and this is where I started. And you have a whole world of experiences behind you that count. Unless you're a coach straight out of high school, which I wouldn't recommend, then you have a lifetime of experiences in a previous career. I spoke to a woman the other day at the Ever Coach Summit who's been a mother. She has 9 children, from 9 years old to 31 years old. The qualities and values and how she shows up as a mother are a gift to this next part of her career, but it's easy to dismiss that. So I want to put that into the mix, that there was so much that I'd done as a leader on my journey before I became a coach. But I'll fast forward, I'll go back to 2003. I'm training to be a head teacher in London, and I'm trained in coaching skills. It was part of the new way of being a leader and helping your people and your team. Trained in coaching skills. 2 years later, I'm at a new school, very inspiring head teacher. He's pushed out a couple of weeks after I arrive, and a new boss is put in place, and she wants her own team. So unceremoniously, I'm in at work at 7 o'clock one morning, and I'm driving home at 7:30 with tears streaming down my face, because she says, I don't see a place for you in this team. What do they say, last in, first out? She wanted her own team. And suddenly I'm complete. And I went off to Thailand. Really, I ran away. I was humiliated. And I began coaching out on a beach. I had these playing cards, and I play these cards and ask people coaching questions. And there was a moment when one woman had spent an hour talking to this woman, and she said, what you just did, the questions you just asked me, changed my life. And it had this massive impact on me, because I was still caught up in the old job title that I used to have, feeling useless, that I'm nobody, I'm nothing. And there's this thing called coaching, and all I have to do is listen deeply and ask questions. And she says her life has changed. And I said, this is it. This is what I want to do. So I flew to the States and began my career coaching people here in the United States. Did lots of training, spent 2 years immersing myself in trainings, spent another 2 years immersing myself with some of the best coaches on the planet. Came to this country with 3 quiet intentions. I didn't share them out loud. I want to train with the best coaches on the planet. I want to have the best coaches on the planet be my buddies and my friends. I want to be one of the best coaches on the planet. And I've been training and studying ever since, for over a decade, in every possible modality of coaching. I've had dozens of coaches. I've been to dozens of workshops. I never stopped reading. I never stopped learning.
Wow, that was powerful. And I want to invite you to have the same growth mindset, which is why go ahead and download the workbook if you haven't at this point, or if you've printed it out, kept it somewhere, go ahead and bring it back to you so you can take effective notes. It's important that you take these notes, because as you'll take these notes, all the training and this online workshop would really sink in. The ideas will really sink in. So I want to invite you to go ahead and download the workbook if you haven't, or at least keep a notepad or some kind of technology that you can use to take some notes so you can capture what we talk about today. By the end of this training, what you would be experiencing is you'll fully understand what does it even mean to be an exponential coach. What does it take? What are the elements of being an exponential coach? What are the things to consider if you want to be an exponential coach? We'll also discuss some of the principles that you can use or kind of focus on to be able to go from wherever you are to a place of becoming an exponential coach. We'll also talk about how you can use these principles with your clients and really impact their lives and really take them to get 10x results. You see, most of the coaches, like I mentioned previously, focus on creating their business. They focus way too much on saying, how can I enroll a client? They focus way too much on saying, putting up their website and creating like little knickknacks here and there. What most successful and exponential coaches do is they create exponential results for their clients. They look at, how can I create impact with my clients? What can I do? How can I work? What can I learn so I can create that transformation in my client's life? You see, Rich was giving an example where he invested 4 or 5 years in just working with the greatest coaches and learning how to coach really, really well. Really invested in himself so he could grow and become such a powerful coach that we are sitting here today interviewing him, trying to see how we can take the same knowledge and pass it on to you. Now, let's get straight into really fully understanding what does it mean to be an exponential coach. So if I was to ask you, Rich, what does it even mean? What is an exponential coach?
Well, let's speak to this program. We called it Being an Exponential Coach. So I'm going to distinguish each of those 3 words because we can take them for granted. Coach. What does it mean to be a coach? Well, for me, most coaches in the world approach coaching as if it's remedial. I've got a problem, can you help me? There's nothing wrong with that, and there are plenty of people who can help if you have a problem. It's not how I choose to play. Because for me, the problem that you come to me for may not be the real problem that you have. And maybe there's no problem worth fixing, that if we help you create a bigger vision for yourself, that the problem is not even worth addressing anyway. So for me, coaching is about listening deeply, listening to the words under the words, listening to the feelings under the words, getting so present with the person in front of you that you can be with them, that you can feel the pain that they feel and the desires that they have, even when they're not in touch with them. So there's a distinction around coaching that for me is very different. It's visionary, it's future focused, it's fun, it's being present with your client. Then there's the word exponential, being an exponential coach. So we distinguish coaching, exponential. Exponential, the simplest way of describing that is 10x. What if you could 10x the results that you're up to right now, or those of your clients? So I'll distinguish in a world where most people are aiming at 10%. How can I do a little bit better than I am doing right now? What distinguishes you as you stand out in the world is playing a game of 10x. I sat down with my client the other day who was raising $10 million to fund her X Prize. And by the end of that coaching conversation, she realized that's not big enough. I need to be raising $100 million. And she walked away after that conversation 10 times the mission, 10 times the size. That's the game I want to play. That's the exponential game. And then there's the third word, and it's being. And it's really important to me because in a world of doing, if doing is what it took, we could all read Richard Branson's biography, we'd all be billionaires. Follow the steps that he took. But what we miss is it's about who was he being at each moment that he did the things he did. And who are you being? And so whenever I'm working with a client, I'm working at the level of being. And I'm not afraid to work at the level of doing. I wrote a book called The Prosperous Coach, which teaches you the steps to build a prosperous practice with a few high-fee, high-performing clients. But underneath that, I'm looking at who are you and what would work for you to take your business to the next level, to achieve those goals, to accomplish what you want to accomplish. At the level of being, the deeper level, everything can change. Being an exponential coach.
Wow, that's a very interesting way of explaining being an exponential coach. It has 3 elements that come together for you to be able to create those results with your clients. Now, we talked before we started this online training that there are certain principles that really create an exponential coach. It really make an exponential coach. And we talked about a few principles. Could you take us through what were those principles and how these principles can be applied for a coach?
Yeah, I'll take you through them. I'll take you through them one at a time. And the first one is mastery and mindset. Mastery and mindset. Mastery. I wrote an article called Mastery a few years ago, 3 years ago. I know that because the subtitle is How to Become an Overnight Success as a Coach in 46 Years. Mm-hmm. And it's the piece we miss. Success is very visible, failure is invisible. And we compare how we are feeling on the inside with how they look on the outside. Mastery is a journey that has ups and downs and lefts and rights, and every 2 steps forward you make 3 steps backwards. Understanding what mastery is about, understanding how to be a master of your craft, understanding the growth mindset that's needed to be successful, and how to take your client through that too. We dive into mastery. And then we dive into, in the same module, mindset. For me, mindset is the secret to working with really high performers. I've coached Olympic athletes, world-class martial artists, special forces operatives, presidential candidates. I couldn't be better at what they do. They're the best in the world at what they do. But I don't have to be. I'm a coach. I'm really good at messing with your thinking. Because your thinking, when you're super successful, got you to the level that you're at. And if your thinking could get you to the next level, you'd be there already. Mm-hmm. I got in a taxi in London a few months ago, and the taxi driver said, "What do you do?" And I shuddered because I hate that question. How do I explain what I do? And I'm a coach. How do I put that into a few words? But it's London. Everyone loves football or soccer. So I said to him, "Do you ever see a football team who are doing really well, and then they kind of got in their own way, their thinking got in the way, and they started doing really badly?" He went, "Oh yeah, Leicester City." And I said, "All right." So And I had to Google it when I got home. Leicester had done incredibly well the season before, won the league. It was amazing. It was a shock to all the journalists, shock to everybody. And the next season, they were almost relegated. So I said to him, oh, well, I work with people like that who've been super successful, and then their thinking has got in the way, and I mess with their thinking. And then they get to the next level of success. And he went, oh, you should work with Leicester City. Mindset, for me, is the key to working with top performers. You don't have to be more intelligent, wealthier, more successful than them. If you're good at understanding the way that they've created their world and then helping them to shift that, even 1 degree. For high performers, the tiniest shift has an exponential impact.
Mm-hmm. So that's mindset and mastery. That's correct. The first principle.
Second principle is deep inner work. You see, the first client is the one sitting in your seat. The one sitting in your seat. The first client is you. You have to be willing to do the work. That's why I was at pains to stress. It's been over a decade of deep inner work since I first became a coach. But years before, I was studying leadership for years, paying to go on my own trainings, because mastery and learning have been something that have been really key to me. So deep inner work for me has 2 purposes. I got acknowledged the other day by someone after he saw me present on stage, coaching live at an event. He knows how I work with my team, and he said, Rich, I admire you for this thing. And the words really struck me. He said, I admire you for your ability to be in tension, that you can hold tension. You can be in a place of discomfort and know that's the place you need to sit. And that, for me, is a factor of all the years of deep work that I've done on myself. I can be present when a client is upset with me. I can hold a room of 40 people. I've got a group I lead of high-performing coaches when there's edginess in the room and there's discomfort, and I can sow discomfort because I can hold it, because I've got that capacity to be comfortable feeling uncomfortable. And we throw that phrase away lightly, but it takes years of deep inner work. So one of the things we teach in this module is what I call a what scares me list. Making a list of all the things that you're afraid of, because underneath fear is so often desire. And I have my clients one at a time begin to step into those things that they're afraid of. And then they discover, oh, either I'm not afraid of it any longer, or this is the direction I want to go on, this is the path I want to go on. And it takes years of deep work. And we'll introduce you to the kind of deep work with a whole range of exercises that you can do to begin that process. So the second element of deep inner work, the reason you do it is to be okay with not knowing. You don't have to know the answers. Too often as beginner coaches, what we're looking for is what's the answer to the question that the client has. The more comfortable you can be with not knowing, you can take your client from a place of, I've come to you because I want the answer to my question, to actually, my job is not to answer your questions. You're the best in the world at what you do. If the answer was going to help, you'd have it already. My job is to help you live into more powerful questions. And I can only do that if I come from a place of being comfortable with not knowing. And not knowing too in my own life where I'm going next.
That's powerful. That's really powerful. Especially the last bit about deep inner work and being okay with not knowing the answer, because I feel like that would be a big challenge for a lot of coaches. And I would almost think like coaches might go, oh, I need to know the answer. That's how you become an exponential coach. But I like how you positioned it and how powerful can that be. So the 2 principles that we have talked about at this point is mastery and mindset, and we've talked about deep inner work. What are some of the other principles?
Well, the next 3, exponential coaching, exponential thinking, and exponential community. So let me differentiate those. So exponential coaching is about taking your client deeper than they've ever gone before. Being able to be so present to them, you can hear beneath their words. There are 5 elements to this kind of coaching. Deep listening. What I've spoken about a number of times, listening beyond their words. Eliciting, drawing out their greatness, seeing something in them that they don't even see in themselves. The way I describe what I do is I help powerful people remember how powerful they are. That's eliciting, drawing out their greatness. Then there's 10x, taking your clients from the goals they have to the goals they don't even know they have. Being willing to challenge their thinking, being willing to acknowledge them and praise them, and then say, how about 10 times more? And then leadership. Clients are craving a coach who's willing to be a leader, but also who knows when to be a follower, because sometimes it's appropriate to let the client lead on the path. And finally, strategy. Don't be afraid of strategy. You can go there if you want. Not tactics, not tips, but strategy. You really can help your clients with strategy, but it's part of this bigger whole of these 5 elements of deep coaching. How do you really mess with your client's mind and the way that they think? There are 3 tools I love to use. One is an impossible goal. How do you help your clients create something that looks literally impossible for them right now? That there is no way on earth this could happen. When you have an impossible goal, people say, wow. Then there's a moonshot. A moonshot addresses a huge problem and proposes a radical solution. It's in the title, right? A moonshot. It's what JFK said when he said, let's put a man on the moon in less than a decade. When you have a moonshot, people say, how can I help? And then there's a game changer. A game changer is something that shifts the entire nature of your field so that your competitors want to become your clients. And an example is Uber. It's something that when Uber was first announced, people went, huh. That's what they say when you have a game changer. They don't understand you, but you shift the entire nature of your field and there are no longer competitors. They actually want to work with you and for you.
It's powerful. And that's exponential thinking. And then there was exponential community.
Then there's exponential community. You see, when you're the most interesting person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Your job is to seek out communities that stretch you, that challenge you, where you have this feeling of, how should I even be in this room? We'll talk about how to seek them out and also how to create them. One of the reasons I've been so successful is I've created amazing communities, from 4PC, this community of high-level coaches, to my broader community. And then there's another community, and it's your team. A team of powerful people who are actually better than you. That your job is to hire overlings, not underlings. And when you create an extraordinary team, you leverage what you do to go to the next level too. That's extraordinary community.
So we've got 5 principles at this point. What's the 6th principle?
The 6th principle is selling the invisible. There are actually 5 sales. We think there's one sale. I work with you, I give you an experience. Would you like to work with me? Here's the price, send me a check. The first sale is to you. You're the first client. Do you recognize that the personal growth work and the professional development you've done for years, the stories of your successes as well as all the struggles, have made you the person you are today? Have you invested in your own coach? Have you spent more money on a coach than you feel comfortable to spend? Have you invested in trainings and workshops and doing the deep inner work necessary? Do you get that when you sit down with somebody, there's something that you bring to the table? Are you sold on you? It's really key. And it doesn't mean you have to have coached for years. It's understanding that simply by asking great questions, you can transform the person's life. First sale happens in here.
That's really powerful. Thank you for that. So those are 6 principles, and they're really powerful 6 principles. I'm already like, wow, this is some great thing that I can take straight away and implement it. What are the next principles?
So this next principle is serving the incredible. How do you work with people who are wealthier than you, more successful than you, who are even more intelligent than you? I sat down with somebody recently who'd sold his 2nd business for multiple millions. And he told me he was about to start working on the next one when it dawned on him. He'd only created his first businesses in order to be happy. And he still wasn't happy. So one of the ways you can work with really successful people is actually quite simple. There's an article that was published a few years ago by Bronnie Ware. She's a palliative care nurse. She worked with people who were dying in hospices for years. And she said there are 5 regrets that people have on their deathbed. And none of them have to do with anything of being in the office or making money, because you can't take it with you. That article alone, sitting down with a client and going through those 5 regrets of the dying to see which one of those they would regret if today was their last day or this was their last year, has a big impact.
Wow, I think that tip alone, just to say, hey, sit down with the article and see where that goes, that sounds like a great little trick. I know that wasn't what the intention of this comment was, but I think like, well, I was thinking, hey, I can do that with my clients. I can be like, just print that particle out. That's amazing. Thank you for that insight right there. Now let's go to the next principle.
The next principle is the impact of all of this, exponential impact. How do you have this kind of impact on your clients that's exponential? So picture an exponential curve. It's flat and then it goes up really steeply. Sam Altman, who's the founder of Y Combinator, one of the most successful incubators for companies that ultimately become unicorns, billion-dollar companies, says this about being on an exponential curve. The trouble with being on an exponential curve is if you look behind you, it looks flat. And if you look in front of you, it looks vertical. How do you work with someone who's in that place where it feels like nothing's happening because you look behind and it looks flat and feels like it's impossible ahead of you? How do you work with clients from that place? Well, I'll give you one example. We have a tool we use called Impact Boosters, looking at aspects of everything from business to your own personal life, that if in the next 90 days you focused on these things, would have a massive impact. So let me mention for a second personal, because we can leave the personal out too often. How many times have you met someone, maybe it's you right now, you left a career in the corporate world in another field because the boss was too demanding, you hated the career, to get in your new job to discover there is no boss as demanding as the guy sitting in your seat and wearing your shoes right now. Because that guy doesn't let you stop answering emails ever. And you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning working and you're going to bed at 3 o'clock at night because you can't stop. And the key, one of the keys to being really successful as an entrepreneur and as a leader is knowing how and when to put yourself first and helping your clients to do that. And that's what we talk about in how to make an exponential impact.
As of now, we've definitely built an understanding on what does being an exponential coach looks like. We also now have the 8 principles that a coach can utilize to becoming an exponential coach or being an exponential coach. I know before we started the training, we talked about this one really, really powerful question that will allow the coaches on the call to be able to make the decision to move towards becoming exponential or being exponential. Would you be able to guide us through that exercise so we could really tune into and go, what is it that needs to happen, or what does it look like if we become or we start being more exponential as coaches?
Let's do it right now, okay? So pause for a moment. If you're writing notes, put your pen down and get present with me, because this is what it takes, right? Being present in this moment. I want you to imagine that 3 years have gone and we bump into one another and you look me in the eyes and you say something like this, maybe in your own words, but maybe these ones because they are powerful. You say, holy shit, Rich, you weren't kidding. There was one or more insights I got from that masterclass that you led that transformed my life. Let me tell you about my life. Hit pause and write down about your professional life and your personal life 3 years from today. And then we'll see you back here in a moment's time. Did you stay with me? Did you switch off? Did you get present? Did you do the exercise? Because it can literally transform your life. And that's what it takes, right? You had a decision moment a few seconds ago. Do I do this? Do I just click my fingers for a few seconds because he'll come back on? What decision did you make? And that's life, right? Any moment there's a decision. We can go this way or we can go that way. Take the blue pill, take the red pill. Which path are you going to go down? Well, what's your life like in 3 years' time, professionally and personally? You see, the key behind this question is, it's almost the way I start almost every coaching conversation. What would make this an amazing conversation? It takes you off into the future. And you create the future right then and there in your body. And then our job as a coach isn't to help get them there, it's to help keep them here. Because a goal, a mission, isn't a place to get to. It's a place to come from. And if you stayed with me, if you played this, then I love that this could become the place you come from over the next 3 years. And if we bump into each other on the street or at one of our events, come up to me and let me know about your extraordinary life.
That's so powerful. Thank you so much for that. So at this point, what you've got is you understood what does being an exponential coach look like. You also have the 8 principles that create an exponential coach. We talked about mastery and mindset. We talked about deep inner work. We talked about exponential coaching. We talked about exponential thinking. We talked about exponential community. We talked about selling the invisible. We talked about serving the incredible. and we talked about exponential impact, to join the latest program that we've created with this wonderful gentleman, Litvin, called Being an Exponential Coach. This is the first time we're creating a program that allows you to follow some key principles to be an exponential coach, to be able to show up and take your clients from where they are to 10x. So here's what I want you to do. On this page right now, you will have a very special offer. This is an introductory offer that we're offering you because you have stuck with us through the training. This offer is only available while you are on this training. So don't close this page, scroll down this page, and that offer would be available for you. There's an additional discount that we're offering you because you went through this entire training and you know what it means to really be in a place of growth. So we want to incentivize you to take further action right now. So go ahead, scroll on the page below, and you'll see the details of the program of Being an Exponential Coach. And I invite you to join us in the program. You see, some of you will decide to go ahead and take us up on this offer and take action and really invest in your growth and see what it is like on the other side. You see, at this point, there are two possibilities. One is everything that you learned in the training, you're going to go ahead and execute, and you'll start to see some results. And second is where you will decide that yes, you've got some training, but you'd like to know more because you want to know the full scope of what's possible. You want to see how much growth is possible. You are one of those individuals who doesn't only want to grow a little bit, but want to actually grow exponentially. You see, when you go through the Being Exponential Coach program, you will not only be able to go, okay, these are the 8 principles, but you will actually be able to go, what does it take within those 8 principles? What are some of the principles that are within those principles for you to show up as an exponential coach every single time? For your clients to get exponential results, what are those principles? What are the finer details of those principles so you can use those systems, those methodologies, those ideas, those insights to be able to create those transformative results? You see, Rich has been creating transformative results for his clients for over a decade. Like we already know, he has done the work. He's been doing that work again and again and again. He's been able to teach and coach other coaches through his intensives and his one-on-one programs. And finally, these principles are coming to you in the format of Being an Exponential Coach. You see, you don't even have to decide now. You can take the Being an Exponential Coach program, you can invest in the program, and if in 30 days, while you're going through the program, you feel, this is not right for me, this is not what I was really looking for, this is not what my clients need, you just have to send an email to support@evercoach.com and we will send you your money back. The reason why we do that is because we want to empower coaches. Our vision as Mindvalley, as EverCoach, is to impact 1 billion lives. And we feel that coaches are our best allies because you can create more impact out in the world than we as just one company can. Rich talks about exponential community. We feel you is our community. We want to empower you as our community. We want to give you the tools that allow you to create dramatic impacts in your client's life, to be able to create that impact in your own life. And that is why we partner up with individuals and coaches like Rich who have created exponential impact out there in the world, and we invite them to come join forces and create and support this community to be able to create exponential impact through your channel. So go ahead, scroll below, and you'll be able to see exactly what is there in the Being an Exponential Coach program. This program is available on this training at a very special price, at an additional discount, because we believe in coaches who are willing to take action. We believe in coaches who are operating from a growth mindset. So I invite you to join us in Being an Exponential Coach program, and I'll see you on the other side. But before that, Rich, any closing thoughts?
Yeah. It was 10 years ago this month that I called up Michael Neal and I said, I'd like to talk about working with you. And we had a powerful conversation. And at the end I said, how much does it cost? And he said, $50,000. I'd never paid that much money for anything in my life other than my house. And he saw I was a bit afraid and said, I could coach you around this if you like. But my sense is you already know. Either you're in or you're not. And I knew. And I thought, I hate you, because I was in. And my sense is that you know right now. You're either in or you're not. And if you're in, I love it. And I'll see you on the other side.